Hi, I'm Dave, and welcome to PGH EDH, or Pittsburgh Elder Dragon Highlander. If you're here, then you want to learn about how to play Commander. And so this is going to be a bare bones ground floor introduction to Commander and Magic the Gathering on this channel. So thank you for showing up. Uh, and so let's start with the very basics. What is Commander? Commander, or Elder Dragon Highlander as it was originally known, is a four-player Magic the Gathering format in which you try to, defeat the other three people, sometimes more. I've played five-person games, either reducing their life total or other win conditions in the game. So, what is it played with? It's played with a deck, like you see here, which consists of 99 cards with no duplicates, with the exception of basic lands. And then you have your 100th card here, which is your commander. So that is where you get the 100 card deck, and you can buy these decks as pre-constructed or pre-cons as they're commonly referred to, and we'll go from there. So there's one exception to this one of each rule, or Highlander rule, and that are what are called basic lands. And the basic lands make up the foundation of how to play Magic, and that's where we're going to start now. So the five basic land types are plains, islands, mountains, forests, and swamps. Each one of those can produce mana, or what you need to cast and play your cards in one of colors. And then in order to generate that mana to cast the spell, you would turn the card sideways, or what's called tapping it. And tapping it isn't just for lands, it's for almost everything. A lot of functions require you to tap, and that's where we're going to just stick for today, is just some of the very, very basics. This is ground floor introduction to playing Magic. A lot of it applies to just Magic in general, and not even to the Commander format yet. So, you have your five basic lands, and then there are spell cards. And there are, generally speaking, five different types of spells. There's a couple little more niche ones that have come out in the recent years, but the main types you have are instants, sorcery, creature, enchantment, and artifacts. Each one of those is something that you can cast with the mana generated from your lands, and each one has an appropriate cost listed above it, usually listing a symbol of what color mana it needs, in this case white for this card, or red for this one, and then how many. If you need two reds like this one, you'll show two red symbols. And then you'll see a colorless symbol here, where it's just usually just a number, like you see on this one, and this one. That means you can use mana from any color to cast that part of it. So in order to cast this Ghostly Prison, you need your one white and then two of any color. Now you'll notice this Soul Ring can tap itself. That's what the tap symbol is here. And you see these two diamonds? Those are colorless mana. So you can tap it to generate colorless mana to use for other spells. Now, certain cards that generate this do have restrictions, and we'll go over those a lot later. So that is the general point of how tapping works. It is usually done to generate mana from your lands or artifacts, or generate other effects from artifacts. And then the other main purpose for tapping is when you attack or go to combat with your creatures. So like this dragon here, if you wanted to attack your opponent, one of your opponents, you would turn it sideways in order to demonstrate that. And so that's how you show that it is attacking, and then you go from there. So that is the general gist of Commander, which, by the way, is one of the most popular formats for playing Magic the Gathering in the world right now. I personally feel that because it allows cards that don't normally get a chance to shine in the traditional or standard play of Magic, and it allows for you to do fun, really wild, outrageous combinations that also just don't happen in the world of standard because it's just a very different format. And so that's, I think, one of the biggest appeals is you can do epic, crazy things that you can talk about for days with your friends that you can't just do in other formats of Magic very easily. So let's get started with what would happen in some turns and starting off the game. So I will take these, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these Swamp and Grass Plains out because they are not needed for this deck. They're actually just here for showing. They're not part of this deck. So, very beginning, you start with 40 life, so 4-0 life. Everybody starts the same, and then everybody would draw 7 cards. Alright, so you draw. You would then decide if you want to mulligan, and we'll go over mulliganing later. That's kind of a little bit more advanced thinking thing. But generally in Commander, you want 3 lands in your hand to start the game. And we'll cover how many lands and how many of other things to have in the deck building lesson, which will be coming later. So, we have our 7 cards. Now, we go to, if it comes to our turn, because you usually roll or use an app to determine who's going to go first, you then go to, normally be the untap stage, but since it's our very first turn, we don't have that. We don't upkeep, nothing happens. And then you draw. So you draw, even on your first turn, you draw your first card. And like I said, it's the card I showed you earlier. And now, you're in what's called main phase 1. There are 2 main phases, this is the first one. So, you can now play 1 land per turn, unless a card tells you otherwise. And I'll give examples of that later when we go over like special abilities and keywords and stuff like that. So, you can play 1 land per turn. In this case, I will play this mountain. So mountain goes here on the battlefield. Even though these are separate on this nice playmat, they're actually really all one place. They can, because there are cards that can interact with your lands. And so this is your battlefield. And so I'm going to place it here, and now I have the ability to cast anything with either a 1 red cost, like this Faithless Looting here, or 1 colorless, like this Soul Ring here. So, Soul Ring is in every pre-constructed deck, as is another card. And usually, if you can get it on turn 1, it's going to be your best bet. So that's what we'll do. So again, like I stated before, you would tap. So I turn this, so now I have, you can imagine 1 little floating red orb of mana here. And then I use that to cast the Soul Ring. Now, Soul Ring goes out here. Now, it's an artifact, that is the type there, which is kind of like a machine or something that's been built by the wizards. And then I could tap it for 2 colorless, but I have nothing else in my hand that I could cast right now, so there's no point of that. So then we would go to our next turn. Next turn, we untap. Now we draw, this is our library, that's the term here. We draw a card from our library. Well, we had upkeep, but there's no upkeep things here, and I'll go over some of those and more again when we get into more complex things. So now I can play another of my 1 lands per turn. So I drew, in this case, a special land, Command Tower. Command Tower is not a basic, as you can see here, the mountain says basic land, but it is a special land because it says you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. And what that means, as you can see here on Shiko in our set, they have white, red, and blue mana in their symbols. So this can tap for any one of those colors, because that is her color identity. So now I have 2 mana. I can tap for a total of 4, with 2 of it being colorless, or 1 red, 1 blue, 1 white, whatever I need here. So let's look at our hand. What could we cast right now? Don't have enough for this yet because that requires a total of 5. Now, if we wanted to protect ourselves, we could tap this for 1 white, and then tap this for 2 colorless, and now we can cast the enchantment Ghostly Prison. And so that is out now on the field. We cast that. Everything is casting a spell. When you see things that are spells, that's what almost anything is. Artifacts are spells, enchantments or spells, creatures or even spells. The only thing that technically aren't spells are lands. And so we can go from there. Now, I've cast that, and we're still in our main phase. I don't have any creatures, so I'm not worried about going to combat. But I do have in my hand this Faithless Looting. So, just to show you, I can tap it for 1 red, cast Faithless Looting. So now it goes to my graveyard. This spot over here to the doesn't have to be there. This playmat just nicely gives you a nice layout where everything is. And now, according to the card, I draw 2 cards. And now I discard 2 cards. And some people turn this as rummaging or fishing, is what this is generally referred to as. So now I have to discard 2 cards. I didn't get any more lands, so I'm going to hold on to those. I'm going to discard this Deep Analysis. And then I will discard this Frantic Search. So then that goes it. And we go to next turn. So now we untap. We upkeep. We have nothing in our upkeep. So then we draw again from the library. And now we've got another spell called Ponder. So what I'm going to play this turn is I'm going to play my Plains. And now we get to how you use your commander. They don't just sit here. They are creatures usually, or another class, which we'll get into later, which is much more complicated. So now I can tap for 1 white, 1 red, 1 blue, because this is part of my that's part of my commander's identity. And I tapped for. So actually, we'll get a little more complicated here. So I'm going to tap this Sol Ring for 2 colorless. And as you can see here, we have another artifact in our hand, the Felwar Stone, which we can then cast. It is another artifact that can tap for additional mana. They're called mana rocks, and they're very helpful and very important. And when we go over deck building, that's going to be a big part of it. So now we still have access to 4 mana. So now we're going to cast our commander by going 1 blue, 1 red, 1 white, and 1 mana of any color, because Felwar Stone makes it of other people's lands. And then we bring out our commander to the battlefield. Now, can they do anything? Can she attack this turn? No, she does not have the special keyword for that. So she has what's called Summoning Sickness. So anything that has the creature type, unless it has the special keyword called Haste, cannot do anything that requires tapping the turn it comes out. So that would basically be our turn, and now we go to our next one. So we go untap, upkeep again. This right now we have nothing, and then we would draw our next card. So now we can play our 1 land for turn. So now we have 4 lands and access to a lot of mana. That is when you get extra things out onto the field to help you get mana, or things to help you get more lands out faster. That's what's called ramping, because you're increasing the speed of which your deck can do things. So now we can tap this for a red. We'll do 1, 2, 3 mana of any color, and we'll cast this card called Caldera Pyramaw, this nice dragon. So now it's out. Like any other creature, it has Summoning Sickness, but our commander does not. So our commander can attack this turn. So normally, if she was a regular creature, to attack, it would go to what's called the combat step, which is in between main phase 1 and 2. So I can attack. I will tap to attack her now, but she actually technically doesn't have to, because she has a keyword on her called Vigilance. So, but most creatures, you tap to attack, and then you say who you're attacking, and then your opponent decides whether or not they're going to block. Now, the big key with tapping is if your creature is tapped, it cannot block on your turn or when you're attacked. So if somebody else attacked me right now, I'd have to block with this one and not my commander, because she is tapped. And since we're talking about creatures, let's look at the card here. And so she has, as you can see here, these numbers down at the bottom, 4 and 4. The first number on the left is called her power. So if she attacks something or someone, she deals 4 damage to them. So another person, another creature that blocks her, she would deal 4 damage. Now, the other number is her toughness. That's how much damage she can take before she would be destroyed and go to the graveyard. So she can take 4 and deal 4. So, but right now, just for demonstration purposes, she cannot attack or block because she's tapped. If somebody else attacked me and I needed to block, I would have to use this dragon. And so now we go to main phase 2, and we're going to get into here. So as you can see, I have 2 spells in my hand. I have Consider and Ponder, very similar verbs. They have special keywords, but the thing I want to highlight here is the words instant and sorcery on here. Those are the 2 main types of non-permanent spells. And what I mean by permanent is it stays on the battlefield. Like this Ghostly Prison is an enchantment. It is a permanent because it stays out until something gets rid of it. These 2 are sorceries and instants. A sorcery can only be cast on your turn during one of the main phases. So I could cast it now that I've finished combat. I could cast the Ponder, but and look at the top 3 cards and then put them back in any order, and then draw a card. The other one is Consider, which is an instant. I can cast those at any time I can tap the lands, and your lands can tap any time during your turn or an opponent's turn. So say, one of my opponents is looking to get rid of my commander, and they cast something. It's like, well, I don't have an answer in my hand. I cannot cast Ponder because it's a sorcery, but I could tap a blue and cast Consider. And so that leads me to do something called Surveil, which we'll cover in more detail later with keywords. But I look at the top card, and then I can either keep it on top, or put it into the graveyard. And then this gives me the option then I draw a card. And look at that, I drew a card called Swords of Plowshares, which is another instant. So now I can still cast in this interaction, which is called the stack, and we'll go into that in its own episode, because that can be very complicated to understand. But it's another instant, so if, say, they were blocking me with a creature that was going to kill my commander, I could then tap and cast that. But this Ponder that's still sitting in my hand, I can't do anything until my turn. That's the difference between sorceries and instants, unless there's a keyword called Flash that changes that, but we'll get into that on the keyword episode. So that is the general things. So let's say I wasn't able to save my commander. They stopped me somehow. So my commander would die. Now, when a commander dies, there are 2 things you can do. You can let it go to the graveyard, or if they did something called Exile, which, if you saw on the Swords of Plowshares, has that word, Exile, which is different from Destroy. A destroyed card goes to the graveyard like the spells do. An exile card goes to this zone, and exile cards cannot be brought back no matter what. But commanders are special because they're the foundation and the leader of your deck. If a commander were to die or to be exiled, you then have the option of sending them back to this command zone. Now it sounds great, because then you can just cast your commander again for 4 on the next turn, right? No. There's something called commander tax, and as you can see up here, which I'm really glad this Playmatic God has. Commander tax says every time you recast your commander, it costs an additional 2 colorless mana to cast them. It's a way of, not low-cost commanders not getting out of control, and really powerful high-cost ones also not just being recast super quickly. So next time I cast it, since I would have commander tax of 1, it costs me an additional 2 colorless. So for the last of this video, we're going to just go through the steps of the turn one last time. I still have Ponder in my hand, so I go to untap. So untap all these lands and my artifacts, and if I had any creatures tapped, I would. untap them as well. I upkeep, no upkeep effects here, and then I draw. So now I'm back in main phase 1, and I can cast, we'll just do the, I'll recast my commander with the commander tags to show you. So now it's 1 blue, 1 red, 1 white, and then 1 mana of any color, like this one produces, and then an additional 2 colorless to bring them back out. And that's what commander tags is. And that is the basics of how you go through your turns in a game of Commander. Now, Commander, they say, is not the best way to learn Magic, and I agree to a certain extent because 4 players adds complexity to it, but a lot of people are getting into Commander. There's been a lot of really good sets lately that have brought in new fan bases. Final Fantasy last year brought in a lot of new people. Avatar: Last Airbender brought in more new people. They're doing a Marvel Universes set this year, and they did a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set this year, and they're doing a Star Trek set this year. So all these are potentially bringing new fans, and they're going to want to play Commander because, in my opinion, it's the most fun format. Even with a bad game, you get to see and talk and interact, and it's very social. It's the gathering part of Magic the Gathering, even more so than the regular game. But I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I hope you've learned the basics. And we'll just do a quick recap here. So, the stage, you start the game with 7 cards in hand. You get 40 life to start. And the goal is to knock your other 3 opponents, usually, out by either using creatures or spells to take away their life, or some other win conditions. And we'll go over that in the next one, I think, will be general rules for Commander. You know what? No, I'm going to do it right now. There are 3 ways to lose in Commander. 1, your life total goes to 0. 2 is there's something called commander damage. So if your commander, in this case Shiko in our set, deals 21 damage to another player. So in this case they only have power 4, so that would take a lot of attacks, but there are ways to increase their abilities. If they did 21 damage to somebody over multiple turns, it's not at once, it's adds up over the course of the game, then they are out. And then the other ways is there's something called poison counters. Certain creatures or spells give you poison counters. If you get 10, you lose. And then there is what's called milling. If somehow you draw this entire deck, all starting 99 cards, all the way down to 0, and then you cannot draw any more when you have to, you lose. It's called milling or decking somebody, and there are strategies built around that. There are certain cards that can really make you draw a lot, or cards that just intentionally just send cards to your graveyard. So those are the 4 main ways you can lose: life total, commander damage, poison, decking. So hope this has been really helpful to you. If it has been, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time on PGH EDH, or Pittsburgh Elder Dragon Highlander. I'm Dave, and thanks for watching.